well, welcome to the Introduction to AIM webinar. I'm going to
Thank you.
share. Oh, yes, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Um, I'm going to be sharing today some information about AIM, about how it started and other aspects of the methodology, so you can learn a bit about it. I think you're coming to the Summer Institute, is that right?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, you're going to get a little overview today of what it's all about. I'm Wendy Maxwell. I'm the person who created the methodology in my classroom in Toronto many years ago. And yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a while. My contact is here, Wendy at aimlanguagelearning.com, and you have that now since I sent the link. And you can follow me on Twitter there if you like. As I mentioned, created the methodology in my classroom. I also train teachers, and I'm the author of the different resources that we have. So today I'm going to talk in the next 45 minutes or so about how the accelerative integrated methodology rapidly develops proficiency. I've been using it for many, many years now and developed it through the 1990s and then continued to develop it into the 2000s. And many, many teachers all over the world are using it now. So you can, because it's you here. What was it that brought you here? First of all, I guess, of course, you're coming to the Institute. How did you hear about AIM? Did you
I
see it?
hear it about my colleague,
Mm-hmm.
which teach friends like me
Okay.
at St. Matthew School here in Calgary.
In Calgary. Oh,
Yeah.
lovely. Oh, so are you coming to the Calgary workshop?
Yes. Calgary
Yes.
workshop.
Okay. Okay. I'd seen your name. I wasn't sure which one. That's lovely. So that's coming up pretty soon. That's great.
Yeah.
So, and do you teach core French or immersion?
I teach FSL.
Okay, FSL. Yes, I know at different places in Canada it's
Mhm.
called FSL or core. That's great. And what grades?
7.
7. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
is it your own class then? You teach grade 7 and alongside that you teach French as well?
Yeah, I have 2 classes of grade 7 and 2 classes of grade 4.
Oh, and grade 4. Okay,
Yes.
very nice. Do you teach French to the fours as well?
To the,
Grade fours as well?
yes, grade 4 and grade 7.
Grade 4 and 7.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, well, I'm going to share with you how AIM began, a little bit about that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I was a French immersion teacher, that's how I started my career in Toronto. Um, I taught French all day. I taught language arts, social studies, math, science, and the kids were coming along well. It was primary grade, so it was their first, start into French. And after that, I moved to a school where I decided to, and I really wanted to teach FSL. So
Mm-hmm.
that was junior kindergarten, so age 4, right through grade 5 is what I taught at that school. And I was
Mm-hmm.
really excited to teach there because I thought, oh, this is great. My kids are going to, um, after 7 years of language instruction, 30 minutes every day by grade 5 or 4 or 3, they're going to be fantastic. And I was absolutely shocked when I when I met with my grade 5 students and realized that they could not understand when I spoke in French, which is what I was doing in my immersion class. They couldn't read in French well. They couldn't, speak to me at all, and they couldn't write a sentence, much less a story. And I thought, oh, this is unheard of. This was a very good school. The parents were supportive. It was a perfect environment. I had it was a girls' private school. So there were a lot, the kids were average to above average academically. And, it was just a great environment. And yet these kids hadn't learned anything. And I couldn't understand why, because as a student myself, I learned French through high school and learned well. And I thought, well, everyone learns French well at high school. And doing my master's research, I realized that this is not the case. Only about 4% of the population really learns in a typical communicative or traditional, either grammar-based or thematic approach. Unfortunately, 96% don't learn very well that way. And a lot of us, the 4%, we become teachers and think everyone learned this way. Well, so we see this ongoing continuity of teaching that wasn't really working. And I didn't realize that until I ended up teaching FSL myself. So I decided to try certain things out. And over the course of 10 years, I developed a methodology that really does work well. It's used now in thousands of classrooms across Canada, the United States, the Netherlands, and Australia, and other countries too, for core, for FSL, and also many, many schools now for immersion. So this is a little bit, you can just have a peek at what AIM looks like.
Everyone will do the song.
Grand-mère. Parce que c'est la grand-mère de Chaperon Rouge et la mère parle à Chaperon Rouge. Alors c'est ta grand-mère. Tu la forme des fantastiques.
La place est toma. Yo tomo.
Una persona importante o importante, importante, importante. Entonces, yo no hablo con tú, okay.
Contigo.
Oh, sí.
我要找一个歌手，小鸡住在农场里，一天小鸡出上学，一个像我家的小鸡的头上。怎么了？哎呀，天错了，天错了。
So that's just a little excerpt of some aspects of the methodology in different languages around the world. The main goal of the methodology, which is AIM, is to develop authentic proficiency. It always has been since the beginning. As I explained, I just wanted my kids speaking, reading, writing. They weren't, so that is what I wanted to see. And I'm really happy that the new guidelines out there, no matter what province or even country, ACTFL in the United States, for example, and the Canadian provincial guidelines are all focusing now on the can-do statements that come out of the CEFR in Europe, the Common European Framework of Reference, starting in the early 2000s, and just focusing on the development of authentic proficiency, which is what AIM does. I'm going to jump over that. So the reason why, as I explained earlier, I started AIM is to make sure that kids rapidly develop authentic proficiency, not 5 years later, not 7 years later, or never, very, very quickly, because the faster we can get students up and running in the language, I feel, the better, especially as they get older. They're less tolerant of years and years of not learning anything. So we want to make sure that they're up and running in the language really quickly, developing that authentic proficiency and a foundation for language proficiency at least. And so AIM was not in developing AIM, I didn't tie it to any specific curriculum. However, I have curriculum documents. We have them on our website that link AIM and what our outcomes to the provincial outcomes in Canada. AIM is a multidisciplinary approach. Being a former immersion teacher, I realized the value of teaching language through another subject area. So AIM is an arts and literacy-based approach. Our focus is on the development of arts-based activities and arts-based curriculum, theater, drama, music, dance, as well as language arts and literacy skills. We develop students' abilities for the writing process, the editing process, and even book publishing process. So it is based on a lot of research on how the brain works, multiple intelligences, and I can share a lot of this information with you. It's on our website. I can show you where it is. So AIM is used in many, many schools worldwide, many schools in Canada, as I mentioned, United States, also the Netherlands. AIM is used widely, as well as Australia and other countries. It began, as I said, in an independent school in Toronto, and many more schools that are public schools now use AIM, both English language districts or French language districts, private schools, Catholic schools. What other schools do we have? Yeah, well, just many different types of schools use AIM as well. And I'm really happy to say that a recent study out of the Netherlands that studied students, because AIM is used widely there, up in the northern part of Holland, a university decided to study AIM's effectiveness. And so they discovered over a longitudinal study that AIM students outperformed students in other programs, in the other most popular French programs, in all language skills. And in fact, this research paper that was published a couple of years ago was voted the best research paper of the year in the JESLA journal in Europe. And just this last October, the Dutch students were rated the best in the country. And those are students who take AIM from grade 6 through to grade 12. Students in Virginia, the Netherlands, Virginia and Nevada are winning national competitions for French, and there are various states that use AIM as well. So I'm going to go over the key components of the methodology. There are many different components, but these are the ones that really stand out and are sort of the overarching biggest aspects to the methodology. One is the gesture approach, and that is, as you noticed, or you may have seen from or heard about from your colleagues, is a way of allowing us to quickly provide meaning kinesthetically and visually, auditorily as well, for an arbitrary sound. If you don't speak Mandarin and I said ni hao, it would mean nothing. You'd say, oh, is she saying, how are you? You know, sometimes we relate the sound to our own language, or maybe she's saying, you know, come here. You know, I don't know what ni hao is. It's an arbitrary sound. But if I attach it to ni hao, oh, okay, that's what that sound means. So when your students are faced with all these different sounds in this foreign language, they mean nothing to them. They could mean anything. We want to rapidly help them understand what every sound means. And we want to separate the sounds too, because if I said in Spanish, you know, buenos días, ¿cómo está hoy? Espero que estás bien. Like that's just blah, 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 blah. I can't even distinguish between one word or the other if I don't speak Spanish. So the gesture approach allows us to do that. So we have bonjour, viens ici. And so we have individual gestures that can help students understand. Now, it's not only the words and their meanings that we help students grasp rapidly with the gestures, but also aspects of the grammar of the language and the syntax. So when we are gesturing, this, you know, the students are visualizing je marche vite, 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 là-bas. So they're seeing this syntax, subject, verb, object, adverb, adjective. They're also seeing grammar and visualizing and kinesthetically embedding grammar when they do the gestures. I'll talk about that in a moment. But we have il est content, elle est contente. So with the additional gender gesture, now we're helping students to visualize, kinesthetically embed, and hear that additional sound relating to the feminine of the adjective. We have gestures relating to verb forms as well. Il marche, il va marcher. So all the infinitive forms have an R in them, I-R, I-R-E, O-I-R, R-E-R, O-I-R-E. All of them have an R in them somewhere. So this represents that as well. So the gesture approach primarily is therefore to pass directly to meaning without having to translate. But it also has those other elements as well to help students come to understand intuitively how the language works from a grammar standpoint. Now, the gesture approach is not just there to do those things. What it does, and I think one of the most important things it does, is it allows us to flip on its head the normal way that a teacher interacts with students. Normally, the teacher has all the linguistic power. Well, the teacher has all linguistic power as a teacher. It doesn't matter if you just have a little French, you're that much further than your students, so you have all the power if you're going to use French only in your classroom. They have no power at all linguistically. They don't speak a word, let's say. So what this does now is the teacher gestures and the students speak. So now, no longer is the teacher going blah, 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 the whole class long. Now the students are expected to participate fully in the language expression, and the teacher guides them through that by gesturing the sentences, using the gestures that the teacher is taught. So the teacher gradually builds his or her knowledge of the gestures alongside the students as they learn the gestures. So the teacher is gesturing for the students to speak. And wow, the kids rapidly develop confidence. They develop an awareness of accent because they're talking all the time. The ease with the language just flows. And then during every part of the day where they interact spontaneously, having had this practice really helps a lot to develop proficiency very quickly. So what is the language what are the words that we're gesturing? Well, we call it pared down language because of the French language. Any language has a lot of words. You know, we could fit them into a dictionary this thick. Well, how do we know what words are best? In a thematic approach, well, we select them by theme, which the reason why this doesn't really work well is because it isn't hierarchical. We are going to teach this theme of words, let's say sports, for 2 weeks, and then we move on, and we teach food for the 2 or 3 weeks, and we move on, not revisiting sports or food, and we move on to clothing, and we don't talk about sports or food, and then we move on to, you know, maybe animals. We don't talk about sports, food, or clothing anymore. Now we're on animals. AIM works in a very different way. We help students to learn high frequency words first, and then we move up and teach them more high frequency words and review the other ones that we taught that are very high frequency. And then we teach more words and review again back. So we're constantly going back to the highest frequency words that we taught first. Doesn't mean we don't teach thematic words. We definitely do. We teach question words as well. But they have to be high frequency. And we keep repeating them because this pleasant repetition, which is part of AIM, is essential for language acquisition. So the pared down language focuses on high frequency vocabulary, focuses on, of course, cognates because they're easy to learn. We make it easy by regularizing the stem of the verb. So we don't worry about high frequency, difficult to conjugate verbs because we focus on the regularized stem, making it simple to learn any verb. Veut, peut, doit, aime, regarde, écoute, écrit, whatever the verb is. It doesn't matter because we teach using that regularized stem, and that applies orally to je veux, tu veux, il veut, elle veut, tout le monde veut, la classe veut, on veut. So la classe, on, and tout le monde, we use first instead of nous and vous. To get the kids going in the language, using it correctly, but not having to worry about that change in stem from pe to pouv, adding the ONS and the EZ. We don't worry about it at first. Of course, we teach it when the kids have developed a certain level of proficiency. And then, so what do contextualization of language in a language learning environment when we have a very short amount of time, sometimes just one 30-minute class a week, or 2 30-minute classes, or 2 hours. I typically teach 1 hour at a time a week, through this in the recent past online. And so it's not a lot of time. And even if it's 30 minutes every day, it's still not a lot of time. So we need to choose something that is really engaging but language rich. And so my choice, as I mentioned earlier, is to use a literacy-based approach that combines the use of drama. Believe me, you don't have to be a drama teacher, have any background in drama. I cannot learn lines. I can't even learn the lines of my own plays, much less anyone else's. I am not good, but the kids just seem to love it. They interact in role, acting out stories, and eventually this becomes part of a literacy approach where we help students to develop literacy skills. And those literacy skills are developed through the language manipulation activities that we have, right through to story writing, and I'll show you examples of those. So our main goal is to transfer to spontaneous communication. And we want the oral spontaneous communication to happen the very first day. And then from then on, you know, we start to develop the written language skills. So these are just little images of the gesture approach. The kids sometimes gesture. They don't a lot. We don't require the kids gesture as the teacher gestures. For some children, it's too much. We never prevent them from doing it. Some kids just gesture along, and that's just fine. But there are times where we ask the kids to gesture, and those we call kinesthetic reviews, because there is some benefit kinesthetically in responding to the word and saying as you're gesturing the word. So that's called a kinesthetic review, where we'll run through, 30 words really fast, and the kids have to gesture all those words. So let's have a look at a classroom with a teacher who is not using AIM, but who is teaching French.
Aujourd'hui, je suis très excitée parce que la semaine prochaine, je vais visiter mon ami qui habite à Winnipeg. C'est vrai, je suis née à Winnipeg et toute ma famille habite à Winnipeg. J'ai 2 sœurs et j'ai ma maman et mon papa qui habitent là. Alors, ma maman est tellement contente que je visite Winnipeg la semaine prochaine.
So that teacher is great. I mean, there are many aspects of what she's doing that are great. She's using the target language only. She is talking and sharing about herself with her students, which is lovely. The kids are listening. We don't know if they're understanding, and they're very quiet. So this is the same teacher interacting in an AIM way.
Habite à Winnipeg.
Pardon?
Winnipeg.
Excellent.
Alors, je vais continuer maintenant. Est-ce que tu le montres? C'est ou ne sais pas que je suis né à Winnipeg? Je sais pas. C'est vrai, je suis né là-bas. Et j'ai aussi des amis que je peux visiter là-bas aussi. Et j'aime.
So we can see the teacher as sort of a conductor of the class is listening for errors, listening for kids who aren't participating. You can always repeat the gesture, but it's the students who are doing the speaking. The teacher can mouth along or quietly talk, but the kids are doing the language production. And if ever we feel that kids aren't understanding, we can always stop, ask a question, and so on. So this is a really key part of the development of language proficiency. And it's really non-threatening for the students. Everyone speaks together. So the shy students get equal opportunity for practice as the weak students who maybe need a lot more repetition. So they're getting the practice and modeling alongside the kids who are strong, and the strong students who speak all the time, they are having opportunity to speak as well. So it really is a way for us to create a more homogeneous class where everyone gets the opportunity to participate equally. So we went over the pared down language, the fact that the words are high frequency. We choose a lot of cognates where possible. It's a very verb-centered selection of vocabulary because verbs are so important. And as so, we want to make sure they're easy to acquire. So we do regularize that stem of the verb. So as I mentioned, we create a literacy and arts-based context. So I'm going to just show you this little excerpt from a mentor of mine whose name is David Booth. He was a professor at the University of Toronto, OISE, Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. And he wrote numerous articles and books on, he worked in English first language classes, but I think his ideas really work well in a second language environment. So he says, children new to a language find in a story context for understanding. It's not word lists that command their attention, but the lives of characters that fill the tales they read or listen to, and in the literary stories they meet. And how painful it must be for those children alien to a language to sit day after day without feeling connected to what is happening in the classroom. And yet, through storying, how quickly they enter the activity, making sense of what is happening, building their own versions, listening, telling, retelling, talking about, reflecting upon, responding. So this is a lot, really what we do in an AIM classroom. We work deeply in on one story over a significant period of time. Let's have a look here at one of the part of the French plays.
Le guépard arrive à la maison du lion. Il parle avec lui.
Monsieur Lion, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Il ne pleut pas depuis longtemps. Tout le monde a très soif. C'est un gros problème. Est-ce que tu peux nous aider? D'accord, Guépard. Tu dois aller à l'arbre Ungali, un arbre magique qui est loin d'ici dans la forêt. Tu dois dire le nom de l'arbre et après ça, l'arbre peut aider les animaux. Dis à l'arbre que tout le monde a soif parce qu'il n'y a pas d'eau. N'oublie pas, c'est l'arbre Ungali. Oh, merci, Monsieur Lion. Merci. Je cours à l'arbre maintenant. Au revoir.
So we have a variety of different stories. This one would be most suitable for, say, grade 3, 4, maybe 5. We have stories for primary students. We have entry-level stories for grades 1, 2. We have a different entry-level story, step 1 story for grade 4, 5. We have a different entry-level story for grade 6, 7, 8. And we have, again, a different entry-level story for grade 9 and up. So we really try to make sure that the story reflects the interests and of every age level. We also have various songs and raps. So this one here is an entry rap for our high school series.
La classe commence et tout le monde est prêt. On doit parler seulement en français. Mais si quelqu'un parle en anglais, cette personne n'a pas de carte et ça c'est vrai. Ça c'est dommage, mais on espère aussi que tout le monde décide d'aider ses amis. En français, on parle tellement bien. Notre rap est terminé. Oui, c'est la fin.
So we have a lot of entry raps. Those raps are there to help in a fun and engaging way with rhythm and rhyme. We incorporate a lot of rhythm and rhyme. And certainly you don't have to show these raps. You don't have to show the video. You can do just the audio. You can just do it a cappella, which I did for many years before we had them, these, on video or recorded. So it's just the rhythm and rhyme is helpful. I think all language teachers know how wonderful it is and engaging to use songs. You could always invite the older students to find instrumental versions of raps or just beats that they like and say the rap to that as well. It's lovely to get the older students to really get involved in selecting their own, just to have input on the creation of the program as well. And here's a little dance that we have. Every play that we have, every story has an associated choreography.
Some say me down, I don't know. Can't see down the same old.
So that's basically just one of the many choreographies that we have for the younger students that they can perform at an assembly or just to another class when they present the play, or you can film it for a video for open house night. It's just another aspect of the methodology where we get students moving to the language in a different way. And through drama, through dance, through gesturing, we keep the kids moving and active because this really keeps the brain. So taking the play that we work on over a long period of time that the students come to know very, very well provides us with a wonderful opportunity to now have in the mind of the students a language in a context that they come to know so well that basically aspects of the story are actually memorized by the kids. So we take this knowledge and then we can use it so well to help develop language, the ability to manipulate language. So just having kids memorize a play or story, or having the students memorize a song or a rap, will not develop proficiency. It's only taking that knowledge and then helping students to develop it independently that results in students' language acquisition and ability to manipulate the language independently, which results in, of course, authentic proficiency. So we want the students to, very early on in the language acquisition process, to be able to transfer what they're learning in the whole class activities to spontaneous speech, and in the writing to develop the ability to write creatively, and of course in the target language only. There are a variety of different educators who have looked at AIM and have used AIM. Gary Karkin is one. He's a professor at the Southern New Hampshire University, and he used AIM to teach English as a second language to adults. And here I'll show you just a few more testimonials.
If I had to choose, one thing that distinguishes AIM classrooms from more typical core French classrooms, it's the level of emotional investment that kids have in the process and the fun that they're having. And again, that's fuel that drives the learning process.
So they're very keen and they can apply. I guess the most remarkable point is that they can apply everything or a lot of what they've learned in a context, in everyday life context.
And what we didn't anticipate would happen was that students in grade 4 with a sibling that it was in grade 7 were going home at night and actually speaking French in sentences at the dinner table. And the feedback was very impressive from the parents that all of a sudden their kids were having conversations that they couldn't follow in French at the dinner table.
So it's lovely when we see that the students take the language home and make it part of who they are, and use it authentically in context, even if the parents can't understand what their children are saying. So this is a class that we filmed in Ontario after the first year of implementation of AIM. We just went in and said to the students, just talk about anything at all. And this is what we came up with.
Engali est très fantastique. Oui. Okay. Tu es toute seule maintenant. Et tout le monde avec Melissa. Oui. J'ai oublié son nom. J'aime qu'il y ait peu de méchants. Est-ce que tu peux chanter ça maintenant? Ça va bien, je chante très bien. Oh, oui? Est-ce que tu peux chanter maintenant? Non, parce que tu es très, très... oh, oui.
Il y a 5 personnes dans ma famille, mais je pense que mon frère est un animal.
So, well, at least they're able to complain about the sibling in French, which is interesting. In the first part of this video, you saw that the student, the young guy was trying to get the person opposite him to sing, and she didn't want to. And it was interesting when he was trying to use well, we could tell that he was trying to say, because you're embarrassed, you don't want to sing. And he knows in an AIM class, the kids know that it's a target language only immersive environment. The kids are not to use English. They have to use circumlocution to get around the language to say what they want to say. And so it was nice to see that the girl next to him gave him the word peur, which is something we use and learn in the Step 1 kit to help him. AIM is a very much a cooperative learning approach where we encourage students to help each other in an environment where we try to promote that we're all here to help each other. So I've done a lot of work showing you about how we develop oral language skills. And of course, it's most important to develop oral language skills at first so that the written language skills flow. Once you do develop oral language skills, the written will indeed flow, especially if we're talking about English to French, where we share the same alphabet, the same sounds. The transfer of knowledge is immediate. So we do see among students high levels of language skills being developed. I'll just pause now. Do you have any questions at all with respect to what we've seen so far, Lucy?
No, it's okay. It looks like sometimes we use it in class without knowing that it's like a very great subject to learn.
It's a very, what kind of subject?
It's a very good subject to learn.
Oh,
That
yes.
will help students to learn new language.
Yes, yes, it is. It is not only helpful, you're absolutely right. It's not only helpful in helping students acquire the language and authentic proficiency, but it also provides, it also contributes to the curriculum in general because the kids are learning, literacy skills. They're learning to do some drama and some choreography and singing as well. You're absolutely right. So we'll have a look at some students writing here.
Oui, il faut de mettre ensemble et déchirer.
Est-ce que ça, c'est la même histoire, mais dans les mots différents?
Oh oui.
Dans les mots différents? Mais est-ce que tu fais en partenaire?
Saute.
Beaucoup. Est-ce que tu fais...
Et très pauvre.
Est-ce que tu fais ça?
Et sans. Non, ça c'est juste une
maison.
Et
Tu fais ça?
Lui commence à marcher dans la forêt. Il espère trouver un ami dans la forêt. Elle a demandé
Entraîneur. Oh, excellent. Entraîneur.
Ici.
En 3 mots. En train de.
Après, il a triché avec un accent aigu. La petite chaperon rouge est partie le plus vite possible chez la grand-mère de chaperon rouge. Mais est-ce que tu es... A dit... Alors, qu'est-ce qu'elle a dit? Qu'est-ce qu'elle a dit? Elle a dit... La grand-mère, d'accord. Elle est malade, la grand-mère. Non, pas la grand-mère. Sa grand-mère. Non, la grand-mère.
Non, la grand-mère.
Non, ta grand-mère. Parce que c'est la grand-mère de chaperon rouge et la mère parle à chaperon rouge. Alors, c'est ta grand-mère. Ta grand-mère.
So in an AIM classroom, the students are working together during the partner group activity time to develop their stories, to discuss their written activities. So they're continuing to develop oral language skills in the process of the development of written language skills. So oral and written in tandem. We do, as I mentioned, we do a lot of work on rhyme and rhythm, and this is something that some boys at a school in an FSL program came up with as sort of a as an extension of the entry routine that we provide the students with the kit. They wrote their own. Oops, sorry about
Aujourd'hui, la classe commence. Et tout le monde porte des dents. Quand j'entre dans la classe française, je ne parle pas en anglais. Je parle en français. C'est fantastique. La Bengali a bien appris. Je parle en français, c'est très très bien. Je fais les actions avec mes mains. En agriculture, ça c'est vrai. Mot. Word.
So the rap is simple and short, but it is, you know, from students who are fairly early in their language acquisition process, but you can see they're so proud. And, you know, a group of boys in grade 8, we don't often see them enjoying French a lot. So it's nice to see in that video. So I'm going to move now into the just quickly give you an overview of some of the written language activities that we offer, no, that we do in this methodology. One of them is called story retelling. And this is teaching students circumlocution, how to use the words they know to say what they want to say without reverting to English. So we take the story that they know, and they know it very well, and we model for them how to do this as a whole class, but then the students write together in partners to develop their own versions. So they have to retell the story in their own words without repeating any of the sentences that are contained in the original story. They are also shown how to add details. So this is the literacy aspect of the story retelling activity. So this was one of my grade 1 students when we were working on Le Chat et la Lune. This was her first year of French. We had French 30 minutes a day, and she wrote this at the end of grade 1. And then we do the same activity when we're working with older students, no matter what the language. So this is a grade 11, first year of Spanish. And the student, of course, in grade 11 is going to write much more, it's going to be much more detailed. It's going to have better spelling, better punctuation, but it's exactly the same process, no matter what the age we're working with and no matter what the language. This is Japanese, and I'm often just amazed at how students, even after 80 hours of instruction, are able to write in the other language with a different script. In grade 7, down to grade 7, same process again, much longer than grade 1, much more detailed story retelling, and much better punctuation, spelling, and syntax. So, but all of those examples were taken from around the end of the first year, after the second kit, where students have had about 100 hours of instruction. After we do a story retelling, we in our second step kit, we work on story extension, and that's a different story. That is where we take the story that we're working on as a class, and we write what happens next. Qu'est-ce qui se passe après? So the students develop their own story, but still scaffolded because it is based on a story that they've come to know well. So they're probably going to use similar characters, similar settings. And so this is a story that a couple of my students wrote in grade 1, again, 30 minutes a day. And one of the students had French in kindergarten. The other one had just started that year in French in grade 1. And I'll just read it. So this is where Les Trois Petits Cochons ends. After. Après que le loup sort de Les Trois Petits Cochons, il va à la maison et dort et se réveille et marche à la blase et court et marche. Monsieur Loup est très fou et content. Et le loup frappe à la porte de la fille amie. Il dit à son ami, « Est-ce que tu veux danser avec moi? »« Oui, je veux, je aime toi. » L'ami dit, « Est-ce que tu veux aller à ma maison? » Le loup dit, « Oui, oui, je veux. » « Le cochon est ici, dit le loup. »« J'ai peur, dit la fille amie. Elle court à sa maison. « Oui, je veux aller à ma maison. »« Est-ce que tu veux aller à ma maison? »« Oui, je veux aller à ta maison, dit le loup. »« Je veux faire une fête, dit la fille amie. » Le loup dit, « Oui, 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 je veux. »« Est-ce que tu veux manger avec moi? » dit le loup. « Oui, oui, oui. » La fille amie dit, dit la fille amie, je veux, je veux, je veux. So we see lots of repetition in there, lots of inventive spelling. It is grade 1, and perhaps these kids use inventive spelling even in their first language. Of course, these students don't have all day in French. They only have 30 minutes. So their ability to use correct sound symbol, understand this correct sound symbol relationships is still developing. Now, of course, some students, even in grade 1, are much better than other students. Ça, c'est délicieux is very interesting. She spells that there. So yeah, but what we can see here is that there is no way the students in grade 1 could have written these pages without being able to say these sentences. This is a direct transition from oral to the written word. The students would have to be able to orally say those words if being able to write them here. So we also work a lot on outside. We give the students the opportunity, especially the older ones, and as they move through the kits, to read stories outside of that core AIM story, and to do retellings and or extensions, as we see here, based on another story that they could write, from one of the AIM readers, or any story that students are interested in the second language. So here we have a teacher in second year, a teacher who has students in the second year of AIM. They did a story, not a story extension, but what happens before one of the stories, and that we work on it as a kit. And the student wrote about 1,000 words of what happened before the story for the kit. Okay, so we'll move along here. So in order to implement the methodology, we do offer training and resources. So in the resources, in a kit, you will receive a program guide. So a kit comes in a box. It's a hard copy series of resources. You get a book, which is a program guide. You get the teacher's guide, which has a series of 85 lesson plans every day for 85 lessons for you to implement the methodology from start to finish, with all of the activities written out in full, and they're all numbered activities. And so this is what the 85 lesson plan looks like. It suggests an entry routine, the whole class activities, the partner group activities, and the leaving routine, leaving spaces for you to design your own lessons. If you want to repeat something or do something else, it's that space is there for you. So that 85 lesson plan helps guide you through the kit, and how the whole class activities and this partner group activities, which is the student activities, are interlinked and interconnected, and how much time to spend on the different whole class activities, and how much time to give your kids to spend on the partner group activities. All that information is included in that 85 lesson plan. You also have a big book, which is hard copy and projectable onto a whiteboard and it's read aloud with highlighted text. The posters and image cards are also hard copy and also projectable onto a whiteboard. We have assessment activities books and CEFR activities books, DELF-like tests representing, the language proficiency levels of the CEFR that you can offer to your students as well. There's the portal that comes with every kit, and that has all of the videos of the songs, the raps, the dances, the gestures, the gestured play. It has the projectable posters with the audio, with the instrumental versions or versions with vocals, as well as the e-reader of the story that you're working on with highlighted text, and it's read out loud. If you would like, as I mentioned earlier, correlations with ministry guidelines, we can definitely share those with you. Training is very important, and I'm so thankful, Lucy, that you're coming to the Calgary workshop. You're starting with the level 1 workshop. It's a 2-day training getting you started. So when you leave that workshop, you will know most of the gestures. You will have very much in an engaging way learned how to use those gestures to teach the different words, because you will be engaging in an AIM classroom as if you're the student. So you will really practice how AIM is used in every activity, all of the basic activities. We will go through all of them with you. So you'll be very familiar and can step in the next day into the classroom using the methodology and getting your practice, which is really the best way to learn, is just to get going and practice and learn with your students. The level 2 workshops help you to reinforce certain aspects that teachers typically find a little more challenging than others. And then we expand on your knowledge of what you learned in level 1 as well. Level 3 is much more, and the 4 are much more working on the creative components of the methodology. And finally, that we offer certification. So the trainings, well, Calgary workshop coming up soon, and then our in-person summer institute, the virtual summer institute, the in-person ones in Toronto, and the fall institute in Vancouver. So that is it for today. I'm just so thankful that you joined me today, Lucy, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in Calgary in the next few weeks. I don't know if you have any leftover questions, or certainly I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, or anything at all, or is that just a lot of information you want to consolidate?
Yeah, I just registered today to see your meeting because I just want to have an idea about what my colleague said.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed to participate at the meeting the 24 and 25 to see what will be what will happen. I want to learn new things and give some how can I say, help my student to learn French very easily.
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy, Lucy. That's wonderful. Part of the success of an AIM teacher is that willingness to learn, willingness to give it a try. AIM is very easy to use, actually. I have teachers coming up to me saying, I am so embarrassed. I have no prep. Everything's there in the kit. It's just explained after the training. You can just go in and step by step, you just learn with your students. You don't need to know everything when you step in the first day to teach AIM. You just need to know that lesson. So it is actually very easy, and you build your knowledge slowly over time. You don't need to be overwhelmed. It just comes very naturally. And with the extensive practice you have using the gestures, they also come along naturally. They're very natural. So I am thankful that you joined today, Lucy, and yeah, I will look forward to seeing you in Calgary. So thanks again, and have a lovely evening.